Hi, everybody. Welcome to Conversations with Calvin, We the Species. I always like to, by the way, special, for me, extremely special show this morning. Actually, it's afternoon already, with Jennifer Alvarado, because she's a multi-award winning international recording artist, and such a wide variety out of Nashville. Um, I'm looking at my notes. Country, Christian, singer-songwriter, indie pop. It's coming live from Nashville. Great, and I listened. Actually, I listened, Jennifer, a few times in a row.
Yeah.
Uh, I'm going to be 500 miles because I love what you did with it.
Well, thank you.
I know the Proclaimers did that, and it, Peter Paul and Mary, did 500 miles, different song, but and I'm a folkie, and I am, Popeye used to say, "I am who I am,"
Yeah.
and so do I. I am who I am. I came out of the '60s, so I'm a folkie. I'm really thrilled to sit down with you now and talk about your journey, your music. But I did listen to so much of your stuff. And I think you have an amazing voice.
Thank you. I appreciate
Truly, very unique. As a matter of fact, well, we'll talk about that. So, um, my monologue, it's so funny. Last week it was like 20 degrees here in New Jersey, and today it's in the 70s. And it's kind of weird. I don't know what to do. I don't know how to even dress. What? It's the craziest thing, and it's going to be back 30 degrees at the end of the week. It's crazy. Anyway,
that.
I'm so thrilled we have this time together. So why don't you just say a couple of background things, and then we'll talk
Yeah.
about you and your journey.
Sure. So yeah, I'm a singer-songwriter. I grew up in Hickory, North Carolina, and I still live in North Carolina, but I live part-time in Nashville working on recording and songs and trying to get a publishing deal for songwriting. And yeah, I've been doing this full time since middle of 2021. Before that, I was in ministry, and I, I think I grew up an only child, and so I grew up with that rational parental, um, I guess, expectation of like you go to college and you go do a normal job, and like you can do music as a hobby, but that's not really a career. And I started on that path, and then I very quickly was like, I'm miserable, I'm going back to music. So yeah, we kind of did the full circle right on back to where I started.
Yeah, yeah, it's so interesting. Um, the ministry side and my spirituality. Maybe we'll have some time to talk about that, or even
Yeah,
off the air. It's
definitely.
powerful stuff. Um, and me too. I've parents pushed me into being a pharmacist. A healer, and I just couldn't do it. And
Yeah.
eventually now, I'm doing what I'm doing. It took me, unfortunately, it took me about 7 decades to land in the right spot. So be it. At least I
Yeah,
landed. That's the way I look at it.
definitely.
At least I landed. So, Jennifer, people, and I like this, people describe your sound as kind of a combination Deana Carter meets Alanis Morissette.
Yeah.
Uh, what do you do when you hear and you're listening back to your own music? How do you feel that's um,
I think
positioned?
I think that that's pretty accurate. Somebody told me a long time ago they were listening to my songs, and they were talking about, I guess because my voice is pretty sweet, like I can get like that angst in it and everything, but for the most part, my voice comes off pretty sweet. And honestly, the music with it is also kind of sweet. And so they were talking about it's like sunshine, and then you look at your lyrics, and it's like, sad rage or whatever, and it's that juxtaposition between the two. And so yeah, I do see the Deana Carter and Alanis Morissette. Like I grew up listening to a lot of 90s country, and that's what I really just what I gravitated toward. I loved the storytelling that came with country music. And um I think for the most part there wasn't a lot of rage in that genre, especially in the 90s. And so I would listen to grunge, and I would listen to people like Alanis Morissette and Meredith Brooks and all of that growing up. And there was that like rock element that comes in, and so I loved that. I just loved the honesty and the rawness of their performance, but also the lyrics. And it was very like it made songwriting okay to state whatever you needed to say, and that's what I needed at that point in time. So yeah, I just like the juxtaposition of it. It makes it, I feel like it makes it, sometimes it makes like the emotional side of things a little bit easier to swallow, if you wrap it up in a pretty little package versus it all just looks like a mess or chaos. So
You know, again, I grew up in the 60s with folk, which
mm-hmm,
told stories,
mm-hmm,
but there's a beauty. And again, yeah, I did co-host a radio show and stuff, but there's a beauty to country music because
mm-hmm.
it's a very special emotional kind of storytelling,
Yeah.
and there's a certain, real beauty to it. It's Americana,
Mm-hmm.
and it's part of America, and it's great storytelling. So as my wife and I were actually, I told you, we were talking about country music last night. We were driving in the car, and
Yeah.
Sirius automatically puts me into country music. Was who did what's his name? Aldean, Jason Aldean, is that who?
Jason Aldean. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's who was playing last night. And so my wife said, "Do you love country music?" I said, "Well, it's giving it to me," and I listen to Pandora a lot, oldie stuff. I
Mm-hmm.
want my '60s.
Yeah. Oh
Although
yeah.
it's funny, I didn't ever realize that Johnny Cash and Bob Dylan were really good friends. Did you know that?
Oh, I didn't know that. Mm-mm.
I mean, they were really good friends. Johnny Cash, king of country music,
Oh yeah.
Bob Dylan, a king of folk and then folk rock.
Mm.
They were really good friends. Johnny Cash used to be backstage sometimes at a Dylan.
Okay. Oh wow. Okay. I didn't know
Interesting. That's my mission is to tell you things you didn't know, you
that.
know?
Okay. Well, a mission
Good,
accomplished.
good. Um, you blend 90s country storytelling with, and we just mentioned it, with alternative rock history. Um, what does each genre like give you?
Mm.
Because emotionally, because uh,
Um, I think so. I grew up a lot with my grandparents and my papa and my nanny especially. My papa played several instruments. He's the one that showed me how to play guitar. Um, and he's the one that helped me appreciate, I think, the musician side of things, because I wanted to be a musician because of him, and I wanted to be a good musician because of him. um, my nanny was more of the, I guess, audience, and she loved music. She absolutely loved it, and so music was always playing. We were always watching stuff, but she loved the storytelling aspect. And so even when I was little, we would sit at like a mall or something in the car, and we would people watch and we'd make up stories. And so,
wow,
and I think for me, like the country thing is still me able to have that relationship with her. She passed away when I was 10, and that was a really big loss in my life. And I think that it gave me a comfort that I needed. But I think that the rock stuff, and just the honesty of lyrics, because storytelling, yeah, storytelling obviously gives you the outline of a story and goes through that. But I think with the rock and even the folk and stuff like that, because I listened to a lot of folk music too when I was younger. um it was more of a personal, this is how I feel, versus telling the story of somebody else. And so you got down to kind of the nitty gritty of how you were feeling. And that was sort of my therapy. That's sort of how I talked about these feelings that I had of like loneliness, or having a bad day at school, and a fight with somebody or whatever, like, I didn't have my nanny to talk to and kind of process those things. And so instead I processed it on paper and through writing. And so I think that I was able to sort of put myself in situations with the storytelling, but I was really able to look at what was bothering me with the other side. So I think that that's sort of
Okay.
where the genres came together,
Okay.
because for me it was, this storytelling versus the introspective part of all of it.
Okay. You're a writer. I'm a writer of sorts,
Hmm.
and writing. But I'm doing so much lately, trying to explore the minds and the hearts and souls
Hmm.
of writers, whether you're writing music or a short story or a novel.
Yeah.
A writer is a writer, and we're a very misunderstood breed.
Oh, definitely.
Yeah,
Definitely.
you agree with that.
Yeah.
And I actually sat down. I've been married for 49 years.
Congratulations.
It's a lot of years.
That's
And I
awesome.
actually sat down last week with my wife at
Hmm.
the kitchen table. And I said, you know me better than me, obviously, because you do. But what you don't know and you can't know is what the
Yeah.
emotions I feel from being a writer.
Hmm.
Can't know that. And the
Yeah.
decisions I've made with respect to things in my life and people in my life who are not in my life because of my writing.
Yep.
And again, so that's I'm just expressing that because it's a segue to my next question.
Yeah.
So when you sit down to write, Jennifer,
Hmm.
um, are you chasing like a particular feeling, a truth, or a
Um,
story? Is there anything in particular you're trying to express?
I think it depends. My why has never really changed as far as the purpose of doing it. I think, for so many years it was for myself and for my own sanity. And then once I started releasing music, it was more about, hey, music is what saved me and what kept me sane and helped me feel like somebody else understood where I I was, because I would look at other people's lyrics and feel like, oh, they get it. Even if they don't know the story, but or have the same story, they get it. They understand. They have, and so you don't feel alone in this bubble that you have created. And so that's what I try to do with my writing. I want to make sure that um, somebody who's listening to my music, if nothing else, they know that I'm being honest with it. And but I don't know that I really sit down with everything and think, okay, what am I trying to get across this time? I think it's more of, I come in and like maybe something has inspired me. Maybe I've come in with a hook that's like, you know, I know this is the chorus, and if especially if I have a hook or a chorus, it's easier to build that song around it and sort of where it's going. But there's times I've sat down and I may have the start of a song and just one line, and then it goes completely to another
No,
realm that I was
no.
not even intending. And so I try to not, I think earlier on I used to sit down and think, I want to write a, pop song and make it happy and about love and blah, blah, blah. And now it's like, I just sit down and write, and whatever comes out of that time is what comes out of that time. I try to not put parameters on it now, because I feel like you can put so many different boundaries and parameters on things that it just destroys what you're trying to do. And maybe that's not what you were supposed to process today, or whatever. Because I've always looked at writing as honestly a therapy session, and you sit down and you go through what's in your heart and your mind, and kind of go through what you need to say.
You see me. I'm taking notes, by the way.
Yeah, no worries.
I'm one of the few. There's a reason why I take notes
Yeah.
because I like to write this up, and so So you'll excuse me. I'm taking. I mean, I
No,
think I'm the only interviewer in American history who takes notes while he's interviewing somebody on air. Uh, um,
that is perfectly fine.
okay, okay. Which is good because you're saying stuff that you know. So, um, I like this question. So, how do you know? Uh, because I'm not a songwriter. How do you know when a song is done? When it's told you everything it's supposed to tell you? Do you ever know that it's done or
I'll be honest. I mean, there's songs that yes, I would consider them done. Like I've told the story, but then I've gone back and I've added to it, or I've gone back and there's one that I wrote pretty quickly. I wrote it, maybe 15 or 20 minutes a couple months ago,
well,
and I played it that night. And while I was playing it, I was like, I think I want to say it this way instead. And so like I've gone back and I've tweaked it since then. And so even when I have recorded songs, I go back and I kind of change them as I've changed. That's not always the case. I mean, there's some that what I wrote is what I wrote. But I think that the way I look at it, especially if it's a story song and especially if it's a personal song, I mean, my story's not done. So things are going to change, or I may look at a situation a little bit differently and think, that doesn't really apply anymore. Um, it's hard to say when a
yeah.
song is done. I think that if it says everything that I intended for it to say, then yes, I can say it's done. One of those is like Filthy Water. Like Filthy Water, I felt like when I got it done, here it is. Like we are done with this. And it was one of those that, and another one is like, by this time next year was another one, because it's how I felt in that moment, and it's what needed to be recorded in that moment. But there's some that I may add another verse or two verses to when I play them live that I didn't intend to do that.
Wow. You can do it because it's you.
Yeah. Yeah.
You can. Yeah, absolutely. Do you ever surprise yourself with what sometimes comes out of a song? Like, I did this?
Never really I did this. I think I surprised myself with, oh, that's how I was feeling about that. Like especially, or even when you write something and you feel better. Like there's been some songs that I've written that like I just needed to get out of me, if that makes sense. One is a song called More Than the Bottle that I haven't released. At some point I will, but it's one of those that like I went in on a Monday and I told my co-writer, like, I've got this, I need to get the rest of it out. Like I just need to basically vomit on a page and get this out. And it's probably one of my favorite songs I've ever written, because it said exactly what I've needed to say for years. And so it's in those moments that it's like, okay, and you can breathe this like sigh of relief almost of, okay, now I don't have to hold this anymore. So I think in that respect, yes, it's like, look, like here, but I just never have had like a look, oh, I did this. Like I don't know, because to me it's not mine to say that. Like I feel like it's a download, like, and it comes, and when you're ready to process it, God lets you process it and lets you put it out there. But I think that you have to go through steps to get there, if that makes sense. And so I just never want to take credit for that, because I feel like it's a gift that is given to me, and yes, I can process through it, and but I don't know.
Okay. Okay. Um, I want to kind of move into like, um, I want to talk to you about certain anxieties.
Mhm.
And I can understand the question as I'm going to ask it because
Mhm.
when I was a regional manager for Luxottica Group, once a year around Christmas we had a national sales meeting,
Mhm.
and my job was to get up in front of 500 people and give a speech about my region and about how we performed and stuff, and wish everybody Merry Christmas and stuff. So it was always like a week or two before Christmas. But
Mhm.
by June, before that meeting, I started getting anxiety.
Oh gosh.
Honest, I started getting anxiety. It was suffocating for
Mm.
me, knowing in 6 months I got to get in front of 500 people and give a speech.
Mhm.
Wow. So in doing my research, you've spoken openly about performance anxiety.
Oh
Uh,
yeah.
how did that fear kind of like manifest itself back then for you?
So I think the weird thing for me was, so I started out singing when I was probably 4 or 5. Like, was the first time I did very first little public whatever. And then when I was like 9 or 10, I was doing public stuff. I think it was after my grandmother passed away, because she was like my cheerleader. Like, she was the one that was always like making the world a better place for me. And I think when she passed away, it was sort of like those rose colored glasses come off and you see the world completely differently. And I was going into middle school at that point, and honestly, people, girls especially, are just mean when you get to middle school. Like, people just, they are ruthless little people. And I think we're all like hormones and rage and whatever. So um, that was a very trying time. And I think during that time, I was so afraid of not having friends and not, I was so afraid of like everything not being perfect, that between people saying like, if you go out for this you're going to get beat up, or we're not going to be your friend, and or just like the weight that I put on myself of, it's got to come out perfectly, it's got to be perfect. um I think between the two of it just it messed me up. And so for several years, until I found a voice teacher that basically told me, just sing the song, like just sing, like, it, just do it. um and help me work through that performance anxiety. Like, for several years, I would try to go out for stuff, and I would just freeze. I would not be able to get the words out. And I gradually started going out to like karaoke places and
Yeah.
singing again, and got involved at church, and started leading different ensembles at church. And so but even then, like, I had a lot of anxiety, and I ended up going to counseling at one point. And I remember the counselor told me, you're just the vessel. Like that is all you are. You are the vessel, and you are God's instrument, and you've got to let him use you how he sees fit. And I remember it just took this pressure off of, it's not on me. Like, yes, I got to prepare, but ultimately, like, it's not on me for how he's going to use this song, or he's going to use my voice. Like, that is for him to take care of, not me. And it took a lot of the pressure off of just enjoying what I was doing again. And I still, especially if I go into a place that it's new to me and I don't know people, and whatever, because you want to do a good job. Like, or at least I do. Like, I have that work ethic that I want to, blast everybody out of the water, and do a good job. And I think I've learned to keep that in check of, I've prepared, I know what I'm supposed to do. um, but I also want to have fun, and I also want to enjoy what I'm doing. And I think that you've got to find that balance, or it's just misery, and then why do it? Like, I don't think God gave us talents and gifts just to be miserable while we use them. Like,
I like that.
yeah.
Which is a good segue. What did leading, worship
Mhm.
teach you, like about courage that touring really never could? So it's a special,
Yeah.
ministry is special. It's a special thing. It's a special talent, special inner self.
I think that number one, it helped me to learn to take the focus off of myself, that it's not about me. And that ultimately it's about connecting with people. It's about meeting people where they are. And I think sometimes you forget that when you see that you're on a stage or a platform, and you think these people are down here, and it's like, no, like they're just as much as a part of the exchange that's happening as you are. And so I think that that's the biggest thing, is it taught me to see people and not just see them as the ones in front of me, but actually people to interact with, to learn from, um, to learn their stories, and get to know them. And I think too, it gives you more of an appreciation of the people. Um, I think too, it gave me the ability to talk with people, that sometimes you don't get when you're just up there. Like, I know for a gig, for example, if I'm going to play a 3 hour gig at, I don't know, some brewery or something like that, um you don't really sit there and talk to people and have a one-on-one. It's just different than if you're doing an intimate setting and you're sharing about songs, or you're leading worship and you're praying with people and you're talking about what a song means to you or something like that. Like, it's different. And so I think that it forced me to have to actually have dialogue with somebody, and not just sit behind in the safety of a song, um, and actually be able to share more of myself than just singing the song.
Your background is so interesting. You studied political science,
Mm-hmm.
studied family ministries.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, does that piece of energy of what you studied come into some of your, does
It,
it?
it it does. So political science. I did a lot of debate, and I loved debate, and so I think that that also helped me with the talking aspect of things, though I still, sometimes you just say stupid things and you're just awkward and whatever. But I will say too, so with political science, I actually did, I was an intellectual properties paralegal for a while. And so I did trademark law and patent law, but also some copyright stuff. And so, yes, the copyright stuff has definitely come into to play, when I'm doing my own copyrights and stuff like that, sending them off to the copyright office. Like, yeah, I think that that background, it also kind of puts into perspective like the business side of all of it, the administrative part of this music business, and making sure that all your ducks are in a row, and that you're getting your royalties and all of that. So it's all played in. That administrative part of my brain has all played in. Um, the family ministries part, I think it still goes back to the connection you have with people, and being able to talk to every demographic, and whoever, and try to relate, and meet people where they are. That's the biggest thing I think with ministry, is meeting people where they are instead of where you think they should be, um, and just having that humility,
Nicely
about you,
said.
to be able to talk to people versus talk at people. So,
Nicely said. Nicely said. I keep writing. I got 2 pages of notes on you already.
oh gosh.
I'm a great note taker. Rutgers taught me well. Uh, was there a moment when you realized, I like this question. Was there a moment, because all your diverse background, was there a
Mhm.
moment that you realized that music was not going to let you go?
So I was, yes, I was in New York. Um, the company I worked for at the time, we had flown up there because the company was becoming public again on the stock exchange, and it was one of those like fly up there, get this merger done, do the stock whatever, and then come back home. And I remember it was the weekend of, I think it was our very first wedding anniversary. And so I was gone. I was up there. I was in this hotel room, and it was this hotel that was like right across the street from Central Park. Um, some extravagant thing that I was like, okay, whatever. And all these people were downstairs at this party, at the bar, and I was upstairs in the hotel room looking out the window at a brick wall because, yeah, I didn't have the Central Park view. And I just remember thinking, like, this is not for me anymore. Like, I want to be doing music. I want to be like, there's so much I want to say and do, and there's so much. Just I want to try this. Like, I want to know I at least tried and failed than just never trying at all. And I don't want to wake up and be my last day on this planet and just think, what if I had tried? And so it was one of those things. It was the balance of all of it. It was the um, working all these crazy hours and feeling like you still weren't getting anywhere. I was at the top of like probably what my career was going to be at that place. And I was miserable. Like, yeah, the money was great, but I was miserable. And it was just like, it just showed me like money's not everything. And honestly, the fear of not being able to live a certain way and pay our bills and whatever, that's one thing that was keeping me there. Of, I had been told all these years, starving artist, and you're going to be broke, and if you do music, and blah 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 blah, and all these things. And I had let that just put the fear in me. um, and I just remember thinking I would rather be that than miserable at the end of the day.
Um,
So, yeah,
Brilliant, heavy, deep stuff.
yeah.
And funny, as you're expressing yourself, Jennifer, I'm listening, and unlike especially in my modern day, in my modern day, writing a couple of books and understanding what your words and what your dreams and your commitment and all this stuff is. It's powerful stuff that drives us as writers.
Oh,
It's
definitely.
powerful, and so listening to the way you're expressing yourself is kind of neat, for me. Um, when Indie Star Radio came calling, and responded so strongly to you, uh, was it validating or was it scary? Because you're starting, you're at that point. Um,
Um, I didn't have any expectations. I think for me at that point in time, it was definitely validating from the standpoint of like, because I had basically put everything on the back burner, with the country stuff and what I was recording. Like, it was one of those like passion projects that I thought I would take off the shelf every couple years and maybe listen to some songs and be like, oh, if only I tried. But it was one of those things of like, I was in this headspace of like, okay, this is my last attempt of let's see what happens. And so when they came back and they liked it, first of all, just that they accepted it, and it was okay and it was good enough. And then that they liked it and that they saw promise in what I was doing. I think that that more or less gave me the motivation to say, okay, well, let's try the next station. Let's send it here. Let's do this. Let's try this. So it gave me a freedom in a sense of like it gave me enough confident boost to like want to keep going. But I also at that point in time was sort of at the place of I wasn't expecting anything and I wasn't going to because I didn't want to get my heart broke in the process. So it was just sort of like here and figure it out and we'll just take it one day at a time. And honestly, that's sort of the approach I've still been in. I think for me, I mean, since I was 6 years old, I've had a 20-year plan of what life was supposed to be and was supposed to look like. And probably by the time I was 21, 22, like every plan I had was just done. And so I think I tried to not put all these parameters in place because number one, it, it's it's disappointing to a certain degree of you hit all these other mile markers, but and so other people are like, but you did this and this, and it's like that's great. I don't care. And I hate to say that because I look back on it and I'm grateful for all of it. But in that point of time, I think when you're not living into what you want to be living into, it almost feels like a waste. Like you don't see the strides and you don't realize that those things are what other people are like wishing for and striving for. And so I see with a grateful heart those things now. Um, and so I think that that's why like I just try to be in the moment now versus trying to have these plans and all these goals because I am very goal oriented, but I've also learned about myself that I'm right on to the next goal. And so I don't just relish that moment when I'm constantly trying to get to the next thing.
Okay. Um, I want to go off topic a second. I didn't forewarn you, but it's no big deal. A couple of questions I picked up from one of my favorite journalists.
Yeah.
So here goes. It's a cute
Okay.
question.
Yeah.
Um, excluding family or friends, somebody living or dead you'd like to spend a day with.
Oh, for sure, Reba McIntyre. Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
great answer. Great answer. I just saw her on TV recently. Forgot. Um, oh shoot. I Just she was just on TV recently. Not on
Yeah.
her show, but
Like
I
an
forgot
interview or something.
something like that. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah. Uh, do you have any I also like to ask this because I'm a film guy. Do you have any like favorite movies?
I've got several. So I love there's two movies that I always go to, and that's still Magnolias and Beaches. Those are like two that I just grew up with, and so like those are like my comfort movies. But then I also like, which you've probably never even heard of this movie, but it's called House Bunny, and it's Anna Faris, and basically she's like an ex Playboy model that goes to this sorority house and becomes like the sorority house mom and like it's just funny. And so like if you just want like a funny movie that you're just like okay like so that's one of my favorites too.
Okay. Yeah, it's funny. You said Steel Magnolias.
Mhm.
I enjoyed that movie a lot, and I liked it a lot. And I could never understand why after that movie came
Mhm.
out and was so successful, and it was just a great story,
Yeah.
powerful. Why there was never a chain of Truvies hair salons. I thought that would have been such a great idea if somebody comes along and makes it because it was just
Yeah.
like the perfect quintessential hair salon, Truvies, and it
Yeah.
never happened. I always wondered why not. Funny stuff, you know. The funny stuff you think about. So, moving on. You've been told that sometimes you're not redneck enough, or you're too old.
Yeah.
How did those words land like the first time you heard that stuff?
Um, the redneck thing I kind of just laughed at because I was like, yeah, I probably am not. Like I'm not. That valid. I would much rather play for I hate to say it, like I would much rather play like a corporate event or church or the country club or whatever. Like I would, other than like a bar. Now I'm grateful for wherever, and I like people, and therefore there's fun in all of it. But there's some places I don't fit, and I think that that's part of the journey of fitting or figuring out like where it works and where it doesn't. The old thing, that's always kind of been the bane of my existence. Because I think the weird thing about life is like people want you to have experience, but they want you to have it at like when you're a baby, basically. Like how do you do that? And so um I've kind of let that go because I know at the end of the day, like first off, God can make anything possible. And so I don't want to ever discredit somebody. So I also feel like if they discredit me for that, then they're just not my people and move on. Um, so I've gotten better at it, but yeah, that is one thing. I've met with people. I've met with artist development people and labels and all of that, and they want you to be like between 17 and 25 basically, and part of that is because they can mold you and they can tell you who you are. And when you're older and you've kind of figured it out, it's a little bit harder to dictate,
Hmm.
oh, you're going to do this, this, and this. And so there is a reason behind it. There's a business reason behind it. But I also see flaws in that because sometimes you end up losing people along the way when you do that. I look at some of these pop stars and whatever that start out at 12 years old or whenever, and by the time they're 25 or 30 they've had a mental breakdown, and part of that is because they've never had the chance to figure out who they are and what they want to be. And so I see that as sort of the downside of this business of I don't know. I don't think we're meant to tell people who they're supposed to be. Um, we can guide them all day long, but especially when money comes into the equation and there's people benefiting from telling somebody who they are and who they're not, I think that it just gets really messed up and skewed.
Um, what I when you and I first connected, through the powers of the universe, like take it to a spiritual plane. I did my due diligence and I started to study up and read and listen to your music. Um, and I said this to you when we first started chatting before we went on air. You're busy. You do 200 shows a year. I can't even process that. Although I do, but I sit in my house. But you're on the road. You do 200 shows a year, Jennifer. What does being on the road teach you about like endurance, resilience, and belief, and all these wonderful words?
I think it's made. Well, first off, I do feel like you've got to find a balance. And I don't always find a balance. And I know pretty quickly when I have lost the balance and try to teeter it back into place. I think that I wouldn't be able to do it without my husband and our relationship, and that being what it is, because I know things are taken care of here, and I know that both of us are committed. And so I think that that takes a lot of, I guess, the pressure off of certain things. And I also know that he wants me to pursue my dreams, just like I want him to pursue his. And he truly is my biggest supporter. Um, and he goes over and beyond trying to support me and make sure that I'm able to pursue what I'm doing. Um, and so I think that that's something that I'm very lucky to have, and not everybody has that, and I never want to take that for granted. Um, I also think that it's sort of being on the road so much just by myself, it gives you time. It gives you time to sort of just talk to God or a higher power, whatever you want to call it, and um, to have that relationship there. And I think too, we I am a worship leader still, at home when I'm back on Sundays, and so I think having that accountability in place too, and that community in place, helps as well, because we have people we can turn to. Um, I think you also realize that I think we see so much devastation and bad on a daily basis if we watch the news and we watch what everybody's saying, and that the world's just going to hell and everybody's awful and whatever. And the thing is, you're going to have people that aren't so great wherever you go. But for the most part, I've realized that people are genuinely good. Like, for the most part, like, I, I have not had an issue anywhere. And um, I think that that opened my eyes to just, we have a lot more in common than we have, and I think that's the biggest thing. That's one thing that I learned when I went to LA a couple years ago, was the music scene out there is so different. It's so eclectic, and I had heard so many things about LA, and that their music scene was like, they wouldn't let you in. They wouldn't. They're just hateful people and blah blah blah. And I did not experience that whatsoever. LA was one of the most just open arms and just supportive groups that I've ever met in my life. Playing the Viper Room, it was every demographic, every type of music being represented. Um, and there was just a respect that every artist seemed to have, and the people seemed to have for the artist. And so I don't know. I think that if you live in your little bubble and you listen to what people tell you all the time, like, you have a lot of fear of this world. And when you actually go out and you meet people and you're seeing it for yourself, you realize that's just not the case.
Okay. We could talk for a lot more. We won't, but which means I love you to come back, and we talked about that.
Definitely.
One final question, just kind of summing it up. If your life were a song, what verse are you in right now? And maybe what would the chorus say about your journey? Uh,
I
and
would say I'm probably on verse two.
okay,
um, there's gonna be still like another chorus, a bridge, and some other stuff that happens. But yeah, I think I'm on like verse two. I think the first verse was more of like gaining that willpower of trusting yourself, and then like you're actually getting into the meat of it all. And I think the chorus is something like keep going, and um, don't miss the forest for the trees, and that this journey is beautiful, and don't let anybody tell you anything different.
perfect. Wow, that's so well said, and you speak with authority because you're living it. you're living it, you're absorbing it, you're breathing it, you're on the road, and I can't even imagine, the energies that you have to dig up because you're on the road. I mean, this is tough stuff, and it's dedication and commitment. And my time with you has been, this is a great word, enthralling, to learn. Yeah, yeah. I like words, and you are enthralling, and your commitment, your journey, and your voice, and this was great. I'm so glad we got connected, Jennifer.
Yeah, of course. Thank you so much for giving me the time.
No, no, this has been absolutely, absolutely wonderful, truly. And please do come back. I'm going to stop
Yeah, love
recording.
to.
Don't
Okay,
leave. We're going to do a 2-minute wrap. Uh,
perfect.
but thank you so much. Oh, by the way,
Yeah.
just tell folks, where can folks begin to hear you? Because,
Yeah, so I'm on all the things, all the platforms. I
yes,
do have a new single coming out on March 13th, and it's called My Daddy Doesn't Like You. It is basically about my husband and that my parents don't like him. And so
wow,
yeah, it's a very true to life song
wow.
that I'm releasing. His birthday is the 17th, and so I'm releasing it for his birthday because
Okay,
why not?
why not?
And but yeah, if you'll check that out, I've got a EP that's coming out probably mid-May, and then I'm doing a little tour for it around that time. It's called Map of Broken Hearts, and yeah, definitely check out my website for more information. It's jenniferalvarado.com, or my socials are at Jennifer Alvarado Music.
Perfect. By the way, I wrote that down. Profound. My daddy doesn't like you. That is profound. You can actually write a short story about that.
Oh, I could write a whole novel
I
with this
bet you
one.
could. Wow. It just never dawned on me. What, by the way, I think that's brilliant. Honestly, brilliant. It's an age-old story. I know about that stuff, because I've lived it, but I never thought you could put it into words. Absolutely brilliant. Just brilliant. Yep. So, thank you, thank you, thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
And I'm going to stop recording. Don't leave. This has been great stuff. Thank you. By the way, in one of my favorite movies, watch where I go with this. In
Okay.
one of my favorite movies, it's a Southern movie, Norma Ray. Um, I don't know if you ever saw that with Sally Field. It's a great movie. She won, I think she won the Academy Award for that.
Oh,
Best
okay.
best actress. She plays, I don't know, it's in the 70s, 60s. She lives in a southern town, maybe in the Carolinas, and there's a textile mill, and
Oh,
and and some guy from New York, Reuben is his name, tries to unionize.
oh,
Comes down there, and this is deep South, and they're not loving unions, and he goes through and he meets Norma Ray, and they have this great friendship. It's probably more, but not. And it's a beautiful movie, powerful, powerful movie, and it's based on a true story. It is a
okay.
true story, and they just become great friends, and they spent months working together to actually put a union in that textile mill, and finally they succeed, and it's time for Ron Liebman played this guy Ruben, and it's time for him to go back to New York because he's a New Yorker, and it was one of these unrequited love things. They love each other, but it'll never work. There's the two different worlds. So the last thing he says there, as he's ready to get into his car to drive back to New York, and he says, "Knowing you has been sumptuous." So this has been a sumptuous interview, and thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, perfect.